What's up, boys? These are my UFC Fight Night Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov predictions and breakdown. Didn't do too good last week, but I'm going to try to make a comeback and try a little bit of a different format. So, without further ado, let's get going. Starting with the first fight of the night, Cedric Dumas versus Denis Tiuliulin. Cedric Dumas, very lanky, rangy striker who mostly relies on his wrestling to get the win. Doesn't have the best power, doesn't have the most fun fighting style, but a lot of times he is able to just be a little bit more athletic and quicker on the draw than his opponents. Against Cody Brundage, he was getting taken down, but was finding some nice reversals. Not too impressed by his skills, but this should be an interesting matchup versus Denis Tiuliulin. Now, Tiuliulin is a good boxer, and that's about his whole game. He struggles when it comes to the grappling and has been fighting the way higher competition, and he's been getting finished by them. However, I believe with his boxing and hopefully training with Renat Fakhretdinov, he's going to be a little bit better and more hip to the takedowns, especially since Dumas isn't a great wrestler. And I trust him to have the advantage on the feet with his pressure and his combination punching. So I'm going Denis Tiuliulin, and I'm going to go by decision. Next fight up the card, we have Jai Herbert versus Rolando Bedoya. Now, this is Bedoya's first drop down into the lightweight division. He recently fought at 170 and had a close decision loss to Chaos Williams and a pretty clear decision loss to Song Kenan. In both fights, he was competitive. You can argue that he actually beat Chaos Williams. And against Song Kenan, while he was doing good with the volume, he kept getting hurt in random instances, and I think that's why he's decided to move down a division. However, against Jai Herbert, he's moving down, and the guy is still going to be bigger than him. Jai Herbert is a great striker in the sense that he has a few tools, and he uses them very well. His 1-2 is his bread and butter, and his outside footwork trying to get you lined up with his right hand. He has a good calf kick and some decent high kicks, although they're a little slow and predictable. However, I think in this fight, with his jab and his 1-2 and his speed, he's going to be able to neutralize Rolando Bedoya, but this is one that can go either way in my opinion. I just feel like the speed advantage is going to be on him, and I don't know how Bedoya is going to do moving down a division. So I'm going Jai Herbert again by decision. All right, the next fight we have Veronika Dudikova versus Sam Hughes. This one is interesting. Dudikova makes her butter with grappling. She is primarily a wrestler, and Sam Hughes has struggled against wrestlers. But I believe Sam Hughes has been fighting the higher competition, and I think she's going to be making some nice adjustments. Dudikova hasn't really impressed me. She got an injury TKO by breaking that one lady's arm, and besides that, hasn't looked amazing, even though she is undefeated. So this is women's MMA, so it could go either way, and I'm leaning towards the underdog and Sam Hughes. Next fight, and this should be a good one, we have Guram Kutateladze versus Jordan Vucenic. Guram Kutateladze is a very dangerous striker. Very quick switch kicks, good power on the feet, very strong and very physically prominent in the fight. However, he has a tendency to slow down, and he does not like it when someone stands there and trades with him. Jordan Vucenic is an awesome Cage Warriors fighter. Their former champion, making his UFC debut on short notice, up a division. He primarily is a striker. He likes to mix it up. Southpaw orthodox. He can go to the legs, the body, the head. He has good pressure, solid defense, and I think he's going to go a long way in the UFC. However, I think I'm going to have to go with Guram Kutateladze. I believe that his power on the feet and just his size in general is going to be able to negate Vucenic and possibly get him to not open up as much. However, I think if Vucenic can weather the early storm and get Kutateladze tired, then I think he can actually possibly get a late finish. But unless that happens, I just think Garam is going to land the bigger shots and is going to make more of an impression. And I don't know if he's going to finish Vucenic, so I'm going to go Garam Kutateladze by decision. Moving up in the heavyweight division, we have Shamil Gaziev versus Dontel Mays. Shamil Gaziev is a pressure boxer, clinch grinder who has a lot of first-round finishes. When he gets outside of the first round, he seems to slow down quite a lot, and his game becomes a lot more sloppy, and he just kind of walks forward, occasionally trying takedowns and throwing a lot of sloppy punches. Against Rosenstruik, he was constantly getting countered and stuck at range and not landing any takedowns. And Dontel Mays, who's a 6'7" monster, he's someone that you would believe would have crazy KO power, but he actually likes to be a slick outside striker, but he's just not very good at it. He's like Muhammad Ali without any of the skill. That being said, I think he's tough and can probably weather the storm and not get finished. However, I don't trust him to make any sort of meaningful comeback. So I'm going to go Shamil Gaziev, and I'm going to go again by decision. Moving up, Muhammad Yahya versus Cain Fernandez. I don't know how to say his name. Yahya is coming off a loss to Trevor Peek. In that fight, he looked very slow. He looked like he did not have the best footwork, and he ended up on the cage a lot, being pressured by Trevor Peek. And getting thrown around by Trevor Peek and not having any really meaningful offense against him isn't a good sign. Fernandez is coming off a close decision loss to Mark Diakase, where he clearly lost the wrestling and was neutralized, but he had his moments on the feet and looked very athletic and explosive. He has some good kick finishes, and he's a very powerful man. So that being said, I'm going to have to go with Fernandez, and I'm actually going to go by a first-round knockout. I just feel like he's too big, too powerful, and I don't see Yahya being able to threaten him very much. Moving up, we have Alonzo Menifield versus Azamat Murzakanov. This is a close fight and something I would consider a mirror matchup. Alonzo Menifield is a low-output brawler with some heavy low kicks who will instigate the clinch if he starts getting tired. Azamat Murzakanov is a dangerous southpaw who's in love with his left hand, but he will throw it to the body, mix it up to the head, and he's very fast and very aggressive. To me, this fight basically comes down to who can stay controlled and who can land the big shot first. I believe if somebody gets frustrated in this fight and tries to rush forward, the other will be able to counter. And seeing as Menifield just got knocked out in 12 seconds, I'm going to have to trust the undefeated Murzakanov to land that big left hand. So I'm going to go Azamat Murzakanov by second-round knockout. Moving up to the first fight on the main card, Joel Alvarez versus Elves Brenner. Joel Alvarez is a 6'3" lightweight BJJ specialist. However, on the feet, he is pretty dangerous. His main thing is big knees up the middle, a long piercing jab, and occasional 1 or 2 punch combinations. He does not go beyond 2 punches usually. It's usually a 1-2, and he uses his size to intimidate his opponents and get them to either shoot a sloppy takedown or to crash into the clinch without any regard. Elves Brenner is someone who I consider an all-rounder with big power in his hands, coming off a loss to Mirtabek Oralbai. But even in that fight, despite all the success Oralbai had, at the end, Brenner was still in there swinging. I think he has insane heart and insane durability, and I think that's going to carry him over Joel Alvarez. I believe his pressure and his willingness to stand in the pocket and throw as hard as he can is eventually going to wear Joel Alvarez down. So I'm going to go Elves Brenner by third-round knockout. Moving up, we have Mackenzie Dern versus Lupita Godinez. Mackenzie Dern is a jiu-jitsu fighter with some questionable stand-up. She has a habit of lunging in with her chin in the air, has shown a good jab, but it sometimes leads into a really ugly right hand and running flurries. And Lupita Godinez, a boxer-wrestler who stays very principled but has trouble get going, and I believe she struggles with her confidence when she's in there. She likes to play it a little too safe, so she could give up some real silly positions and silly combinations to Mackenzie Dern. But that being said, I'm going to have to go Lupita Godinez. I believe with her boxing and her wrestling, she's going to be able to neutralize Dern and outpoint her to a unanimous decision win. Moving up, we have Tony El Kukui Ferguson versus Michael Maverick Chiesa. Tony Ferguson is on a 7-fight losing streak. He has not looked the same. It's hard to even talk about what he does good at this point. Still has some decent boxing on the feet in an offense-only sort of way. He doesn't like to be hit anymore, and his wrestling has really gone away since his knee injuries. Michael Chiesa, on the other hand, is not a good comeback fighter, and when things get rough for him, he tends to crumble. However, I don't think Ferguson is going to be able to put the pressure on him that he wants to because of the wrestling threat. And if Michael Chiesa can avoid shooting into another Darce choke, I believe he can neutralize Ferguson when he needs to and possibly take his back and maybe even get a submission. So I'm going to go Michael Chiesa by submission. Moving up, we have Marlon Vera versus Davison Figueiredo. Marlon Vera, this is another mirror matchup where both guys are very low output, very powerful, and pretty durable. However, I believe Marlon Vera has the durability advantage. He is a slow starter, but works his way into a fight and is very dynamic with his strikes when he actually lets them out. With hook kicks, elbows, punches, he can hurt you in a variety of different ways. Davison Figueiredo, since moving up to the bantamweight division, has looked not as fast as you would think, and his power doesn't seem to be carrying as well as you'd also hope. He's been relying on his wrestling a lot, which is actually a very viable way to get the win over Marlon Vera. However, I don't think Vera is going to be intimidated by Figueiredo, and I don't think he's going to get knocked out. So I have to trust the bigger man to go out there, land kicks at range, and then whenever they tie up, land elbows and negate Davison's wrestling. However, this is a former champion we're talking about, so that is a certain breed of toughness. But all that being said, I'm going to have to go Marlon Vera. I'm going to go by close split decision. Co-main event, we have Shara Magomedov versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Shara Magomedov, the one-eyed fighter who attacks people in malls, is a good kicker. That's the whole breadth of his game. He does not seem to like exchanging in the pocket. He's very conscious about being safe. He seems very tough, and his wrestling defense needs some work. But the kicks are very quick and very dangerous. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk is a boxer, pressure fighter. He loves to put people against the fence and work them with the left hand of the body, the left hand up top. He has good power, and he is usually fearless. However, sometimes he can be put on the end of someone's range or easily submitted. And unless he can get you against the fence, he struggles. But Shara Magomedov is very easy to put to the fence. And I believe that if Mikhail Oleksiejczuk doesn't come in this intimidated by Shara Magomedov and just goes out there and puts hands on him, I think he's going to get a knockout. So I'm going to go Mikhail Oleksiejczuk by first round knockout. Main event of the evening, we have Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Corey Sandhagen is a beautiful striker to watch. Switches southpaw, orthodox, great jab from both, great timing, great footwork, very tough, not someone you can easily knock out, has never been knocked out. And his wrestling scrambles are actually really good when he's not getting his back taken, which, believe it or not, doesn't really happen that often. Umar Nurmagomedov, a dangerous southpaw, really good kicks, really good right hook, has a tendency to run straight backwards defensively, but he always has his wrestling to fall back on, and his wrestling is fantastic. Amazing variety of trips, single legs, double legs, body locks, just so much variety and so many different ways to control you. The only question we have is, can he do it for 5 rounds if he can't get Sandhagen out of there early? However, the fact that I've seen Sandhagen controlled to a majority of his losses besides the Petr Yan fight, have been due to him being controlled and wrestled, I'm going to have to pick the wrestler. I really hope that Sandhagen can show us the new improvements and finally get himself a title shot, because him versus Sean O'Malley should be a great fight. But I have to go Umar Nurmagomedov. Until I can see Sandhagen defeat a style like this, I'm going to have to pick the wrestler. So I'm going to go Umar Nurmagomedov by third round submission. And those are my picks for the fights. I hope you guys enjoy this new format. Take care. Good night.